Good evening.
Good evening, Andres.
How are you, teacher?
Good. With a lot of work, but I'm okay. What about you?
We are always full of work.
Yeah, that's that's something common in all for all teachers.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Maria, Magda, Jorge, Christian.
Good evening, teacher.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, guys.
Okay, we have tonight three presentations. So we're gonna wait some minutes because the members of each group are not complete yet. So we need to wait a little bit.
Let me see. Oh, and happy Teacher's Day to everybody. It's tomorrow, but well.
Thank you. How did you guys celebrate that day?
Working. Now, tomorrow the kids of 10th and 11th are going to like take over some classes. So and then on Friday the school is going to, we have like no kids and there's like a big celebration stuff.
That's pretty good.
And they say that it's very nice food, so we'll see.
Great.
So they cook for you, you said?
No. Tomorrow they teach. They are going to take some classes. And on Fridays, it's like the school is, kids don't go, and the school does like a big celebration.
Ah, okay. At school we have a special mass tomorrow, and then students leave early on Friday, and they are going to have something special for us. It's a surprise.
Great. I don't know what happened with your classmates. We just have Magda. That is, she's gonna talk to us about phenomenological. But she has three more classmates that are gonna help her. Well, I'll do something while the others join us. I'm gonna talk about discourse analysis because the person in charge of that topic didn't prepare the presentation and didn't show up last time or today. So I will start with that. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so we're gonna start with discourse analysis, and I want you to think about a research related to bullying and bullies. So imagine that you want to find out what is the behavior and besides the behavior, the words or the way they communicate, and how the others are affected for that type of communication. So if we study the discourse of bullies, so we will have to videotape and audio record classes in order to find out the words that they use and the nonverbal communication that they also use, and the other people's reactions. So when we take into account those verbal and nonverbal communication and we analyze that, we are or that's an example of a discourse analysis type of research. So as I told you, we have into account the nonverbal communication, which is part of or what reinforces the words that are used for people when we communicate. And when we analyze that type of data, what we do is that we take into account the details of the words that are used, but also, as I told you, gestures and behavior and body language. So that's why in that case videos and recordings are used. Surveys are not used because what the researcher does is to use those transcripts or the transcriptions of that data in order to find out like the keywords that's gonna answer the question. In the case or in the example that I gave you, it will be what is the behavior and discourse of bullies, and how it could be and how that discourse and behavior affects the other members of the class. So in some videos we can find that this type of research is like a forensic analysis of the way people communicate. It is necessary to find out what is communicated and how. So what if the case, in the example that I gave you, the communication is based on rude words or attitudes or let's say well, those are like the ones that come to my mind now. And how people do that, through which words, through which gestures. So is there any question about this type of research?
So the idea of the, I mean, you do the discourse analysis with what purpose? I'm sorry, I was having here an issue.
Okay, usually what happens is that there is a power problem in the place where the data is collected. So in the example that I gave you, the power or the bullies are the ones who have the power, so the rest of the class is affected by that behavior and the way they communicate. But we can also have discourse analysis, for example, in a class where we don't have, for example, participation of let's say, a group of boys, and let's say that the participation is mainly connected with a group of girls. So we need to find out what is going on there, why a group of children don't participate. So always power is like something common in discourse analysis research. Other example could be when we analyze, or when the researcher analyzes the discourse in politics. So what are the words that politicians use in order to convey their ideas? What are exactly the words they use, and how they do that in order to persuade people? Or let's think about advertisement. So what are the words that are used in order to persuade people to buy things? For example, sometimes in that context, we can listen to sentences like, everybody has it, so you need to have that too. So those are like words or sentences that are used in order to persuade people. And the idea of analyzing the discourse is trying to find out how the person is communicating and what is trying to communicate.
Thanks.
Okay. Magda, you have a question. You wrote, what is the relationship with the context in discourse analysis? The relationship with the context. So, well, I don't know if I understood your question, but what I think you want to know is that how is the context related with the analysis of the discourse that the people in that context have. So the idea is that in the context, in the place where I collect data, usually there is a problem of power. Somebody or a group of people have the power to persuade somebody or to do something, and we need to analyze how they do that. What are the words that are used? What is non-verbal communication used in order to persuade others or make others uh, do what that group of people want. So usually there is a power um, a power issue that needs to be understood. So let's suppose that we go into a class and we just have the same people who participate and we want to know why the others don't. Even if we try with several things, several ways, but the other people in the class don't participate. But the same people or the same two students are the ones that always say something. So we can try to find out by video recordings and audio recordings of the lessons, we can try to find out what is going on there. Other example that I can give you is in a class where a teacher was wondering why his students didn't participate, and he found, well, the researcher, who was not the teacher but was an outsider, an observer, found out that the questions that the teacher asked were always yes/no questions and were always related to vocabulary. That class was about reading, so the teacher usually took a reading that was not the topic was not very interesting for the students, and the teacher always asked questions about vocabulary that he thought the students didn't understand. So by audio recording the classes and transcribing the classes, the researcher found out that the main problem was the type of questions that the teacher asked. I mean, the characteristic of the questions were always yes/no questions and always about unknown vocabulary. So that's why the participation of the students was low. The teacher didn't ask questions about the content or to find out the students' opinion about the content of the reading or WH questions. So the participation, that's the reason why the participation in that class was low. And though that research was that research use discourse analysis in order to analyze the data. Okay, any other question about that type of research? Well, so far we have heard about action research, discourse analysis, and case study. You can start a research with different objectives, and that's why you need to decide what type of research you want to carry out. If you want to describe, if you want to take into account the participants' point of view, if you just want to analyze as an outsider without taking into account participants' opinions, if you want to use a strategy or to implement something in order to try to solve a problem, or if you just want to describe the problem and try to understand it. So it depends on what you want to do with the problem that you identify in the context.
Teacher, is it possible, two things. One, is it possible to have several several approaches in one same research, or is it better to just focus on one? And the other is, if I also, is it possible to start with one and maybe during the research, excuse me, change it because you notice that just what you were wanting to do is not possible, or maybe another thing comes up?
Well, usually when we start a research for the first time, we change our minds, and because we do that, our research question also changes. Because the research question needs to be connected with the type of research that we want to carry out. So if the problem is that students have a very low reading comprehension level, so I can either use action research to take to the classroom a strategy, implement it, and find out if it works, or I can try to understand the problem and use case study in order to find out why students are having problems with reading comprehension. Or I could use, let's say, if this course could be there. Probably this course, no, I don't find a connection with power there in the example that I gave you. But you could carry out a phenomenological research or an ethnography research, which is the other types of research that we're gonna listen tonight, the characteristics of those types of research. So the answer to your question is, when we start research for the first time, we could change our objective, or what we want to, the way we want to approach the problem. The idea is that after reading different articles about a topic, and after reading authors that talk about the problem, we can find out what we actually want to do with the problem that we found out in the context. Is there any other question about this discourse analysis?
I would just comment something about it. Maybe it's not about changing the research as a type or something, but maybe that one is going to lead to another. Like something that I remember from the qualitative type of research, it sometimes or most of the time leads to quantitative type of research. So yeah, what you were saying, depending on the findings and the process and our interests, I guess as well, it may lead us use a different type of research to continue doing the research.
Yeah, so I know that for the first time it's not that easy to understand this, but it's only with more reading about examples of other research carried out about the topic you want to read about, that you are going to be more you're going to understand better this topic of types of research. And you will always have also a tutor that will guide you and will ask you questions in order to help you find out your path. Okay, so I think I'm gonna give the floor to the students that are gonna talk about phenomenological research. They are Magda Wilson, Magda Vergara, Ingrid, and Freddy. Yes, are you ready?
Yes, teacher.
Okay,
I'm
so
ready, but I don't know about Ingrid, Magda, because
well,
Ingrid is gonna be the first.
okay,
But
so
no
let's do
problem.
something. No, well, let's start with the ethnography. We have Gerson, Karen, and Clara.
Okay.
So I think I see that they are in the counter.
Yes.
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 Yes, teacher.
So let's start with their presentation, and who wants to be in charge of sharing the screen?
Clara.
Me, teacher.
Okay, good.
Okay. Oh. Well, good evening, teacher and classmates. We are here today to expose about ethnography in education. We have worked with Karen Guevara, Gerson Lopez, and speaking Clara Hernandez. So what is ethnography? It comes from Greek word ethnos, that means folk or people, and graphy. It is a means writing about the people, how to represent graphically and in writing the culture of people. Ethnography is also known as action research, field work, naturalistic research, or interpretive research. Ethnography was the term adopted by anthropologists in the British Empire to describe a revolutionary new way of doing research. Ethnography is a branch of qualitative research used to understand the techniques and methods of a group of people or a community in everyday life. By examining the knowledge of its members, ideas, beliefs, values, behaviors, and what they do and how they reflect it. And this is done by a participant observation in the normal situation of their life from the researcher point of view. Well, there are 5 main characteristics of the ethnography research. The first one, contextual. The research is carried out in the context in which the subjects normally live and work. Unobtrusive. The research about manipulating the phenomena under investigations. Longitudinal. The research is relatively long. Collaborative. The research involves the participation of stakeholders other than the researcher. The last one, interpretative. The researcher carries out interpretative analysis of data. Well, talking about the 3 ethnography principles, the first ethnography principle is based in understanding
because ethnography is a way of being, seeing, thinking, and writing. And if we are able to explain human actions effectively, we must gain an understanding of the cultural perspectives on which they are based, because in fact, ethnography habits define the whole person. Next, please. The second ethnography principle is based on discovery, because ethnography work should aim to be an uncomfortable science. Is a conception of the research process as inductive, rather than as being limited to the testing of explicit hypotheses. This produces an approach to research that is a little unconventional or exposed. Next, please. Well, an important pioneer of this principle was Bronislaw Malinowski. He was the founder of Britannic social anthropology by his own experience in field work, in research in the South Pacific Trobriand Islands during the First World War. Based in his own experience, he wrote the book Argonauts of the Western Pacific in 1922. Next, please. Another important input to this principle was done by Donna Haraway, an important feminist philosopher of science notes, who raised the question, is it possible to be deeply and fully immersed in a situation and at the same time to stand back and make sense of it? Next, please. Next. That means that no. Thank you. That means that implies the researcher being exposed to the profound complexities of the social and educational worlds in which ethnography researcher is part. Next, please. And the last ethnography principle, the third, is naturalism. Is based in naturalism. That means that ethnography demands empathy. The aim of social research is to capture the character of naturally occurring human behavior, but understanding and being attentive to the feelings of another on own terms. And this is important because the research is done by first-hand contact, so it brings emotional and intellectual risks, but can also be accompanied by profound insights.
How to collect data in ethnography? So ethnography employs three kinds of data collection. So they are through participant observation, in-depth interviews, such as semi-structured interviews and unstructured interviews, and documents in order to understand their culture sharing behaviors, beliefs, and language. Participant observation, the researcher will watch what happens with physical evidences and be part of a social context. They can be an active participant, assuming the role of a participant, privileged observer. He doesn't assume the role of a participant, but has access to the relevant activity for the study. Unlimited observer, that is used when opportunities for observation are restricted or absent. However, data collection is not limited to participant observation only. Other forms in ethnography include interviews, listening to what is said, asking questions through informal and formal interviews, like interviews that is typically formal and organized, open and closed question that covers identified topics, and unstructured interviews that can be open questions that enable a free development of conversation. So doing surveys as well, and documents that the researcher will collect, documents and artifacts like that include photographs, maps, figures, table, audio and video records, and transcriptions. With written resources such as letter, text, charts, books, and reports. Next, please. So, what are the main aspects of cultural life that a researcher studies in ethnography? Basically, they study, a researcher studies cultural behavior, what members of a culture do, and cultural artifacts that what members of a culture make and use. And the third one is cultural speech, what people in a culture group say.
Okay. Ethnography in of and or for education. Every ethnography of education also has insights for educators. Most ethnographers are also teachers, and so are able to put their insights to use in education and in their teaching practices. In other words, ethnography in education is the process of providing holistic and scientific descriptions of educational systems, process, and phenomena within their specific context. Ethnographic study in education helps in addressing the problems of education of a particular group. For example, students, teachers, principals, professors, administrators, cleaners, etc., with respect to their culture. Ethnography and education is also a study that has culture involved in it. In the educational research, problems have been dealt with observational studies of educational institutions and phenomena, school and community, personal curriculums, and educational process. Well, we have a very simple example about how to use an ethnography method. So our question research to be studied is how the students in a English class, respond to a new teacher when their teacher have a maternity leave, or can be another issue. The situation is that teacher happen to be absent. In ethnographic research, the activities and procedures are more integrated and less sequential than in other forms of research. The first aspect that we have to identify is the subject. It means identify the group or what kind of people you will observe. Subjects to be studied must be identified previously. This often includes specifying conditions so that the study is feasible. In our case, the subject are students. Now, Gerson will talk about the second step.
Basically, the data collection, the researcher will start observing how students behave with a new English teacher and what make them behave in a particular manner and what problems or interests they have with the teaching by the new English teacher. So the researcher will make notes of his or her observation. So he can use also a key informant interviews, teachers or any other person from school, administration that can play an important role. They will inform the researcher about the students. And they can provide guidance to the researcher on where to find information and resources on the topic study interest, how to access and gain participation of the study participants, and how to interpret the study findings. The next step is
analysis of data collection. In this step, The researcher will analyze the data in order to provide a description of both the students and their classroom, analyzing patterns of behavior, beliefs, and language, and reaching some conclusions about the meaning learned from studying students, their reaction with a new teacher, and their behavior in the class in the following context.
The qualitative description of data after the collection and analysis of the data, the researcher will extract some instances through observation, and this will help in building theoretical base of the study. Once the researcher will gain and analyze the data, will provide description of the theme. He will give a detailed rendering, make a representation of the students and describe the scene in the classroom, what is going on in the cultural sharing group of the students. This description needs to be detailed by the researcher, and it will help the readers to understand the response of a particular group of students to the new English teacher. In this description, the researcher will describe how students behave with the new English teacher. Do they face any problem with when the new English teacher comes from teaching? Do they become more interested in learning when a new English teacher comes to teach? Does the teaching by new teacher affect students' learning or achievement level? How the students cope with the problem of discontinuation of teaching by a regular teacher. The description will give the detail of the entire activity, and this will help in the development of the theory for a particular education problem.
Okay, and in the extract conclusions, in this step is in which the researcher will make a personal assessment, returning to the cultural theme being explored, and raising further questions based on the data. For example, in our example, the ethnographic research in education, now the research will interpret the already described and analyzed data, and he or she will not attach a meaning and significance of the analysis, explaining descriptive patterns and looking for relationships and linkages among the descriptive dimensions. In our example, the research can interpret, for example, by raising the problem of discontinuing of a regular teacher in the school, by telling the advantages or disadvantages of teaching by a new English teacher, also by suggesting how the students can be made to behave well with a new English teacher, or by suggesting the needs of students in order to get familiar with a new English teacher. That's it.
Thank you.
Very good. Any question for Clara, Karen, or Gerson?
I thought it was very clear. Maybe the only comment I will make is that in the question that they put, I don't know, maybe they would have to like limit a little more the question. I mean, it's just nitpicking, but it says English class, I think, English students or something like that. Maybe they should have like to limit it to third grade or second A or 3A. I mean, because English class maybe is too broad. I don't know. Maybe it's just an idea.
Would be the question was, how do students react to a new teacher in their English class, right?
Teacher. Yeah.
Okay. So it could be how do students of third grade at school, Rafael Núñez, react when they have a new teacher, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, when you have a substitute teacher.
Uh-huh. Good. So it's other example could be when we try to describe the way indigenous people react to English classes. So we can go there to the group of indigenous people and see how they behave when they have their English classes in order to, that could be a research in order to provide information to the government regarding the politics of teaching English to that type of people, those people, or how we can, how they, that type of education takes place in those communities that are very different to people in rural areas or people in the cities, just because they have a different dimension or different understanding of life. So they they need to be taught in a different way. So that's other example of research in which ethnography would be used.
Yeah.
Okay, other question, any question for Clara, Gerson, or Karen? Okay, so let's move to the second presentation. Freddie, we don't have Ingrid tonight, so could you please read Ingrid's part? Because we have Magda, Rocio, Magda, Yolanda, and you, but Ingrid is not tonight with us. So could you please read Ingrid's part?
Yeah, teacher, I just communicate with her, and she told me that she's getting to her home. But right away, I will, I'm gonna to explain, or I will gonna to share you this presentation, the next presentation about phenomenological.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, let me see. I will share you the screen. Okay. 2%. Are you seeing this presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. What is a phenomenological or phenomenology? It's a qualitative research method that is used to describe how human beings experience a certain phenomenon. A phenomenological study attempts to set aside bias and preconceived assumptions about human experiences, feelings, and responses to a particular situation. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of situations, you know, in the history context, in the maybe anthropological studies, in all studies, we can find lots of sad stories, good stories, but related with World War, with lots of situations that a human being have lived in our lives. Maybe the experience or fact, because these kind of studies see in a subjective context all problems, and this tries to solution that. This tries to get a particular solution, maybe said by investigation, by research studies, try to analyze this problem and try to get one solution for that. The concept is phenomenology research is to describe how human beings experience is certain if it's a phenomenon or not. Just that is. Fissures. Okay. Ingrid told me that she is connecting right away, but we will experience that she did before. So phenomenological studies raising understand the relationship between studies individual and consciousness social life. So at these studies, it's a qualitative research, yeah, used to describe the human being experience, yeah. The most important point of view to analyze at this feature is to concern what is narrative research and what is the relationship with ethnography, because the focus on setting the individual stories within the context of their culture and culture sharing group. In case study research, the single case is typically selected to illustrate an issue or problem in a historical context. If we have some problem, politics, economy, relationship between people or among people, I mean, there are lots of solutions, yeah, to set this problem. Maybe the production of a social situation and work. Maybe it's try to grow all studies about some phenomenon and try to get some solution. Just that is. Objective. Precisely, the lived experience from human being is necessary to focus on what is his knowledge, what is maybe the solution for seeing into a world, into relatives, into group of person, to focus a single individual, whereas case studies often involve more than one case. Not only one case, maybe a lot that precisely the people have lived in their lives. Characteristics describes qualities of a phenomenon. Already have explained you what kind of phenomenon have occurred at this contest in all stories from history from human being. We have seen world war, economic problems, political problems in our context. At this country, it's a good example to analyze and to share the people's experience between among all other countries, to try and analyze what is the context of human knowledge, what is the context of human things. Basically, said what is the problem from they born in their place, and set one solution to get values, principles, and else. It's an inductive, goes from the particular to the general. Maybe at first is to not ignore and try to get in our minds what is the things that we can prepare to share our experience and try to be in a particular problem or in a particular context. It's a recursive, it refers to itself. Just the problem, we need to understand the problem and try to get a solution for that. It's humanistic, it's study objects, it's the person, it's the social context. Not only one person, it's just group of people because we need to maybe write down some solutions and try to explore different alternatives, different points of view to recognize that all problems or some context in a particular researching. Okay, this kind of course describes 5 methods. What about these 5 methods? Particularly narrative phenomenological research inquire focuses on the stories told from the individual and arranges. These stories often in chronological order. Chronological, I mean from the maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years ago when the, some civilization have established one kind of knowledge, one kind of type of political mean. I know maybe the structure of some state, yeah, is basically focuses on the stories from the people that have born. Okay, participatory action focuses on one kind of problem the people have right away. What kind of problem the people have lived? Maybe what is the solution for that problem? We have seen the African problem because they have lots of problems, not only political situation, just with a hungry, with a thirsty problems. Maybe it's not established, want to say, is not applied for human beings that we have studied in our lives. Ethnography basically is focused on setting the individual stories, not the group, in order to analyze the narrative phenomenological. This only one focuses on the context of each other person. Okay, grounded theory is the process of developing research questions. Can often be helpful for determining the suitability of the research problem for a specific approach. It's important to know what kind of approach can be the research of phenomenological research established. It's necessary to focus on, it's necessary to understand and analyze. Case study refers to different cases in our context. If we need to analyze the political, economical, poor problems, whatever you want, wherever you want to establish some solution in that problem, maybe into some college. In the future, we're gonna be a teacher, and we need to try to solution not the relative problems, just focuses on the student and analyze his behavior, his knowledge, what they need in a future, what do they need in a future. So that's it. Narrative phenomenological, okay, this is the presentation for each kind of studies. When to use, when you are collecting stories into participants, whatever kind of research question, you can use that. Gives insight into how individuals structure communication for effect. Maybe try to get one construct meaning from their life experiences. Weakness just focuses on or refers to a socio-cultural that the people have lived. Okay. participatory action seeks to understand the world. Maybe listening to the different stories of the participants, because all people have different kind of problem, but not only refers to economical, whatever you can imagine. Maybe just they need to new acknowledge, new document lessons, yeah, maybe new kind of studies, because the different people need to describe or need to analyze what is the answer in the world, maybe what is the answer in their lives. Ethnography, okay, our mate just have explained us what is ethnography about. It's a kind of qualitative method that researchers observe and interact with study participants. Is popularity, like narrative, like okay, just the phenomenological uses, basically ethnography and narrative, because in a place, in all streets, when the people try to research some group of people, just focuses on ethnography, because this kind of study try to analyze the culture, their studies, maybe what is they need, they do need for the studies, for the contest. A case of study is basically investigation of single individual group. No more. Okay. Maybe this tries to find from a single case study is hard to be generalized. I mean, different studies are different from, but basically is try to follow these steps to get in our minds what is the method, what is the best method to get one answer. Okay, grounded theory is a systematic methodology. Just this related to quantitative method. Why? Because this needs to get a systematic study. Researchers review the data and repeat ideas, concepts, or elements that the people have. Just, or I consider that the data is the most important point of view of this researcher study. Just at first, substantive coding, second theoretical coding, and we can get grounded theory. Okay, this is a resume. What kind of study is this one? Common strategies, approaches of qualitative research. Just 5 methods that I have explained you: ethnography, phenomenology, narrative research, case study, grounded theory. Just a good example to understand this presentation. So the next part of this presentation basically will narrate by Magda Vergara. I don't know if she's at this virtual encounter. I can see her. I can see Magda.
Okay. This course and some literature identify two types or elements to phenomenologic or hermeneutic and transcendental or philosophical. The researcher chooses the phenomenological side he used in the study. It can be interhermeneutic, which is the art of translating or interpreting text, especially sacred scripture and philosophical and artistic texts. Understanding of human action in context. This means that the research elaborates interpretation of the experience studied based on what the participants express. It means that some social issues are like symbols or texts that should be interpreted instead of explaining objectively. Hermeneutics is, it means that a thing becomes understandable or leads to understanding. The other is the descriptive or transcendental. Please move the image, please. Teacher.
No, it's Freddie. Freddie, could you please change the slide?
Okay.
Show the next one.
Yes. The transcendental phenomenology, in which the researcher analyzes the data and from a description of what the participants experienced and how they experience it, and thus conveys a global sense of the experience. This is an essential principle for the analysis of data. And here, the researcher that are part of the phenomenon. It's all. Some examples the researchers conducting our phenomenological studies are interested in the life experience of humans. This type of research can be applied to a wide variety of situations and phenomena. A few examples of topics that would lend themselves to phenomenological study would be what it's like to experience being trapped in a natural disaster, such as flood or hurricane, or can be how does it feel to live with a life-threatening illness, or what is it like to be a minority in a predominantly white community, or what it's like to survive an airplane crash. This is some that examples for studies that the phenomenological to do investigation. That's all.
Okay, Magda, are you over there? Are you ready for this conclusion?
Yes, I finished my conclusion.
Okay.
I don't know. I read the conclusion.
But I don't know if Ingrid wants to get one conclusion for this exposition.
I think that is Ingrid.
Because Ingrid told me that she will be near this exposition, but I don't know. Okay, so okay, go ahead, Magda.
Sorry to interrupt you, Freddie. Here it says Magda Wilson. I don't know if Magda Yolanda wants to talk about this part.
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Okay, conclusions. Okay, the conclusions of the phenomenally. The method examines the phenomenal Study the concrete cases. See the subject of knowledge not as a real being, but as transcendental. Second conclusion, his statements are valid in a specific time and space. It's a qualitative method, does not admit the scientific creations of the human mind. Only in the consciousness of the self it is possible to recreate and know the reality. Other conclusion, it is a quasi-clinical method. The researcher is interested in the dissocialized subject to answer it. It has an anthropological character. It studies meant and its context. It is a scientific and descriptive pedagogic. Has a critical function. This method fulfills this role. Dragon reductions which subvert the levels in which the educator operates and the learner in their mutual interaction. It's all the conclusions.
Okay, Magda, thank you. Ingrid, you want to say something about the topic? Or maybe somebody has any question for your classmates?
Okay, thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody. Maybe it's an important point of the human being's view in all contexts, from stories, from different steps in our lives, from romance, patterns, I mean, different contexts in our lives. But basically is to get a solution in some problems in a future studies, in a colleges, in a schools, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say that phenomenological studies, as they mentioned, take into account the participants' feelings. So the idea is to find out how they feel about a situation, right? So, for example, if we have some students with disabilities in class, so we could carry out a phenomenological study to find out how they feel in class. How is it for them to be part of that class? And that will be phenomenological because we will take into account their feelings and we will describe, or we will use the way the student narrates his or her experience to answer the question of how he or she feels to be part of that class. So the phenomenon is studied through the person who experienced that, and the idea is to describe it as if it was, let's say, something new. So in the example that I just gave you, having a student with disabilities is not something that is uncommon nowadays. But when we study, when we carry out a phenomenological study, we need to be able to describe the situation or the experience in such a way that we can find out the details about that person's feelings in that experience. I don't know if any of you have questions about that type of study.
Diana, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just want to make a closure about this, just to say that I consider this method is the more humanistic one because it is designed to understand the subjective life experiences and perspectives of the participants. So it is just not collecting data as, I don't know, from a source, a far source is closer. So interviews that way are the main method of data collection, and it focuses on various individuals and their experiences. And I don't know, I consider that's the most important thing about this method.
Yes, as you mentioned, Ingrid, in this type of research, the person's experience is very important. So the researcher needs to be able to take into account the participants' experience and feelings. So the data is analyzed through taking into account the participant's point of view as the most important thing. While in other types of research, the researcher could interpret what is trying to analyze and have as a second, let's say, aspect, the participants' opinions. In this type of research, impaired phenomenological is the opposite.
I have a question, Diana. Is there a minimum of persons to be analyzed in this kind of research studies?
You mean a minimum amount of data to be analyzed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no. Oh, that's why, well, Freddie explained that there are some types of research that are case studies, that are...
Yeah, but none of them talked about an amount, a certain amount of data needed, like to get to conclusions.
No, well, actually, for our program, we ask our students to collect data for at least 7 or 9 classes.
Thank you, Diana.
Okay.
I have a question.
Magda? No, Maria Fernanda.
Maria Fernanda.
Okay.
I don't know if you found out if this type of research works directly with other disciplines, maybe psychology, since it deals with, from what I understood, deals with like traumatic situations or like those natural disasters or situations that those people have to go through. Wouldn't they work, since during the data collection, did you find out if they work along with maybe psychologists or something?
Well, as you mentioned, this type of research is used for that area, to study like a trauma or an experience in the case of psychologists. But other example in our field is a research carried out to find out students' experience when studying at the university for the first time and having problems with reading. So in that specific research, the researcher was trying to find out how the students felt with that, with those limitations they had in order to do well with reading, and why they decided to drop out their studies. So in that specific case, a phenomenological study was applied to understand what was going on with those students what they felt when they were trying to study, and what was the type of help they got from their teachers, and why they decided to drop out.
Teacher, and also related with the question from Maria, is important to know that Husserl introduced another way of examining and studying the phenomenon of consciousness. It was at 1900, just approximately more than 100 years ago, that have established that kind of studies. This study is divided by two ways into philosophy and psychology studies. But just dominated the field. Maybe positivistic approaches became dominant. Maybe it's large studies in psychologists, but this phenomenology is centered on the participants' experiences with no regard to social or cultural norms, traditions, or preconceived ideas about the experience. Maybe just with a consciousness focuses on just that's it.
That what you said is very important, because for that type of research, the issue, the focus is on trying to understand what is going on with the participants. Sometimes we try to solve a problem that we find in the classes or in our lessons, without trying to understand what is the cause of the problem or how the participants feel. And we just think that we have the solution and we try to apply it and see if it works or not, without having this stage that is trying to understand why the problem is occurring in that context, or what is the participant's point of view. Good. Any question, any comment before we finish?
No, Diana, thank you.
Okay. This week you are reading about data collection instruments, and you have to take a reading comprehension questionnaire. Next week we will work on analyzing data using grounded theory to analyze data, and that will be a group task. And the last task, it will be in your groups, choose one topic and read more about the topic. So, if, for example, let's say teaching the students with disabilities, teaching English to students with disabilities. So you will find out 2 authors that talk about that. And in addition, you will need to find out 2 research articles related to that topic. That will be the last task. So the last 2 tasks are in groups, and the task that you have this week and the task that you have this week is individual, and the last 2 tasks are in groups. Good. So if you don't have any other question, that's all for tonight.
Okay, thanks, teacher.
Thank you.
Mates.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Teacher, sorry, I have a question.
Lauren,
Well, I have this cross analysis. So should I make the presentation next class or what?
well, Lauren, you didn't publish the presentation, and so since you didn't join us at the beginning, I thought you were not going to join us tonight, and I talked about it. I talked about it just because you didn't publish it, and I didn't know if you were going to show up.
But what do you mean with I didn't publish?
I didn't find your presentation in the link that I created for the students to publish the PowerPoint presentation.
Can I have it?
Well, the link is in the virtual room. So what you can do is to send it to my email tonight, because the link, the due date to publish was last Sunday. So
Well,
please
I
send it to
published
my.
the presentation, but can I send it to you again?
Yeah. So I will check again because I didn't see it.
Yes, actually I have the presentation ready here. I thought I was going to participate tonight.
Okay, well, Lauren, I will check again. Probably it's my mistake, but I didn't see it there. Anyway, please send it to my email.
Of course, right now.
Okay, thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Happy good night.
Everybody have a good night. Bye.
Bye.